go to Firebug and look at the log. Alright. Of course, you can disable it if you want, because if not, people can actually see your log. Okay, localization is built into GWT. So, like I say, we took around 1 week to get French and Chinese inside, so it really works for us. Okay, so we developed the application, and right now we are trying to put it into QA. Alright, so let's take a comparison between traditional AJAX application and GWT. So in a traditional AJAX application, alright, like using jQuery and HTML, basically you code, alright, and then you verify the task, alright, and then after that you try to verify the compatibility on different browsers, alright, on IE and Firefox. So this is a very lengthy process, okay, like quite a few days if the bug just doesn't work on IE, alright, and then you try to fix the bug on Firebug, alright. And then after that you go to QA. Okay, once the QA said okay, it's okay, you offuse your code, alright, so that your JavaScript gets smaller and then it doesn't get viewed easily, and then you go to production. Alright, if the QA said there's a problem, then you go back to the first point again, and then you try to fix everything in one browser again. So Safari works, Firefox doesn't work, and then you try to fix the bug again on Firebug. Well, on GWT is a little bit different. First of all, you code, you verify the task, and then you compile. Alright, so if your compilation fails, then you don't need to actually go into the next step anymore. So after that, if your compiles fail or there's a runtime exception, then you just do code stepping into your IDE and see exactly which part is the exception. Alright, and then you use the hosted browser to actually you refresh the hosted browser. So in Mac, you will use Safari. On Windows, it will use IE as the hosted browser. And then after that, okay, you will repeat until you finish the task. Okay, once you code everything finish, alright, then you verify the compatibility on the browser. Why? Because for most tasks that you will be doing on GWT, it will work on different browsers, except for some. Okay, I'll come into that later. So that means that you don't actually need to code, verify, code, verify, code, verify. You can actually code and just focus on your task first. Then once you are ready to check in, then you verify on each browser. Okay, just as a final check to make sure that nothing breaks. Okay, then you do a check-in. And the good thing about GWT is that it's built in Java, so you can do build automation on your server. So in Seesmic, once we check in, we do build automation. So once the build automation fails, our ops guy, he's quite a nasty guy, he will actually email to the entire Seesmic email list that your code has failed. Alright, and yeah, so you better make sure that your code compiles first before you check in. Alright, so this worked for us because previously when we are using AJAX and jQuery, HTML and jQuery, what happens is that because we have developers working around the clock, sometimes when one developer check in and then he goes to sleep, so the second guy wake up and then he found a bug, but he don't really know where the bug is because it's in a sea of JavaScript. But in this case, okay, once you check in, if it doesn't go through, if the build automation fails, then yeah, the guy cannot go to sleep. Alright, he have to make sure that he can check in good code first. Alright, so this is very useful if you are working in a big team. After that is QA, and then we goes for production. Alright, so this is how we iterate, and having GWT really help us in this process. And yep, so now for some tips for you guys when you are developing for GWT. Okay, I have 4 tips for you guys. This is very important. Okay. Okay. So okay, I'm just joking. Okay, there are more tips. Okay, so this one is important because you will realize that after you develop for a few months in GWT, Safari and Firefox, they will always behave the same. But especially if you are using CSS, alright, with your application, then you will bound to run into some problems with IE. Okay, not big problems, but some small problems. For example, if you are using GWT, GWT FX, and then you try to read CSS from your CSS files, So in IE, it will actually, let's say you have to read color FF, which is white color. Okay, in the code it will be FF, but then in Firefox and Mozilla and Safari, it will be 255. Alright, so there's a different behavior in IE that always sort of like breaks your code in some way. So you always must test in IE. Alright. Okay, more tips. Get the GWT plugin. Okay, so we start doing GWT development when it's 1.5.3. So during that point of time, the plugin isn't really there yet. So and we have some problems setting it up and stuff like that. It spent around 1 day to set up, and then when you try to share projects, you're bound to find problems. So get the plugin now. The latest version for GWT is 1.7, and the plugin just works very well. All right. Adopt a framework. You can use PureMVC or Gin. Okay, it really makes you able to know, where to put your codes and everything. And as your project expands, then you will run into problems whereby your codes are everywhere. And another reason to use a framework is because GWT has its own way of garbage collection. All right, so if you are trying to code in one big one page and everything is inside, and then somehow or later your code's references will get everywhere. All right, so when that happens, right, the GC will have problem cleaning up the library. So if you try to use a pure MVC framework or a Gin framework, then you will make sure that everything is actually loosely coupled. All right, so in that way, the GC will actually work more efficiently. All right, the last tip is use widget to make full use of the garbage collector. So like the previous presenter said, you can actually use something like that. Okay, absolute panel, then you put a lot of HTML code inside for your div partitioning. But if you do that, then the GC won't be able to kick in that efficiently. So make use of widget. Alright, the GC works very well with the widget. So whenever a widget gets removed from the page, then the garbage collector will kick in and reclaim the memory. Alright, so you have a very responsive web application. So some fun facts to show with you guys, to share. Okay, we have code more than 10,000 lines of code in Java, but only 15 lines are in JavaScript, and maybe 10 lines is in HTML. And that's the body tag, all right, and the header tag, and so on. Okay, fun fact too, our server guys can finally talk to us on the same line because he's a Java guy. Okay, previously we tell him we want build automation for jQuery. He tells us what you're talking about. So right now he finally can talk with us, and in fact he go ahead and do the build automation before we actually know it. Okay, and the last fun fact: no matter what framework you choose, there will always be bug on IE. Okay, so thank you. This is my email, and this is the application seesmic.com/app. Please tweet about this application on Seesmic. You can view it on your iPhone also. All right, and that's another good point of GWT. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for a few questions.
Any
questions from the floor? If not, he will come back later and give us a demo of his application.
Yeah.
And before we do so, we have a second demo from the